and get going for the sake of time. And we will be recording this. I see Susan just joined us, and I thought I saw Marcy too on there. We've got a couple others. We've got Emily and Laura Lee.
I'm
All
here.
right. So real quick, I'm gonna introduce myself, and then I'm gonna have you guys all say your names if you're able to. If you're muted for other reasons, that's okay too. But just so we know who's all in the Zoom session with us. So I am Carrie Kyser. I'm an instructional designer with e-learning services. One quick note is we have changed our name from e-learning to e-learning. So if you had any references to our web pages or email addresses in any of your material, just be sure to get that updated. I'm very happy to have the hyphen go away because I think it made it look very like 30 years ago. And so I do like that, but I just want to remind people of that. We do have another instructional designer in our office, Angela Meek. We kind of divide up the division, so some of you may work with her more, but you are always welcome to reach out to either of us if you can't reach one of us. So we'll go ahead. I'll just jump it to Marlo and make her introduce herself first, and then we'll work our way through.
Sure, I'm Marlo Daly Galliano in the Center for Teaching and Learning and the Division of Humanities.
Perfect. Lauren, you next.
I'm Laura Nichols. I work in the social work program.
Great. Marcy, you want to say hello?
I'm Marcy Halpin. I teach communication in the humanities division.
Great. Susan?
Hi, I'm Susan Steele, and I teach in movement life sport science, and I'm currently the chair.
Great. We've got, who else do we got there? We've got Emily. Do you want to say hello, Emily?
Hi, my name is Emily Jervis, and I work in the International Programs Office and also teach our ESL Bridge program.
Great, thank you. Laura Lee, you're going to say hello there?
I'm going to try. Hi, I'm Laura Lee and Ortman, and I am with Physical Life Movement and Sports Sciences. I'm their stockroom manager.
Great, and then I think we have Scott on there too. Scott, do you want to say hello? Maybe he's not all the way signed in yet. All right, we'll go ahead and just jump right in here and get going. So let me hit slideshow here real fast. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at to stop reinventing the Canvas wheel. So what this is looking at is ways that when you make content, you're not making content the exact same thing over and over and over. Canvas has a lot of really great ways to share within the platform. So we're going to look at the basics of using course copies. Then we're also going to look at just copying selected content. Also, if you want to copy just one item within a class, so say one module, one assignment. We're going to look at direct shares. So if you're wanting to share something with a colleague, you can also share content to Commons. You can share an entire course. You can also share an item, just one item to Commons, or you can also get content from Commons. So we will look at all of those wonderful things. I'm not going to leave this presentation up, but this will be available to you somehow through Marlo's magic. But in this document, there's also how-tos on all of these steps. So if you're forget everything that we talk about today, you can go to these links and be able to see the steps on how to do all this. All right, so let's jump into Canvas. I'm going to go ahead and zoom this in just a little for you. Maybe. So it's easier to just, there, that's a little better. All right, so I'm signed in here as an instructor. And the first thing that we are going to look at is just doing a basic course copy. So this is if, you know, at the beginning of a semester, you come in and you've got your blank course that's unpublished and you're just wanting to copy your course from a previous semester. So this is kind of the just basics of using copying in Canvas. So typically your blank classes show up on your dashboard under the unpublished at first because they're not published when they come in. I have some sample classes in here right now. I'm going to go ahead and go into one. Well, and of course, when you're demoing for a class, it never wants to work the right time, first time. There we go. So when you come into a class, you'll typically see this just blank page. All of everything's here on the course menu. On this home page, clear on the right, you will always see this import existing content, okay? The other way you can get to this same tool is from the course menu. If you go to settings, and my internet is just not wanting to cooperate right now. So if you go to settings, over here on the right, you will always have that import course content. So if you don't see it there on that home page, I'm gonna go ahead and sign out of Canvas and come back in real quick and see if that helps my. It might just be, I'm probably signed in as my regular user somewhere else, and it's just not very happy about that. Let's see if this helps. It never fails that when you're trying to use technology, it wants to not work. We'll tell it to stop being so temperamental. I'm just going to try and remove it. There it's going. Failed loading course cards, details. You can give it just a second here and see if it'll go. Sorry guys, just 1 second here. We'll see if we can get this up and go. Signing in. Is anybody else having problems signing into Canvas right now? Just out of curiosity.
I think I'm okay.
You might, it's just angry at me. Let's try it. This is when you do the try a different browser. There we go. All right, we're just going to do this from my admin account instead of my fake instructor account. We'll go from there. Sorry, guys. All right. So we were looking at just doing those course copies. So when you go into a blank class, so I'm going to real quick search for that other class. Again, this is something I have to do because I'm in as an admin, but you would have your blank one on your dashboard. And when you're in the blank class, we're going to go ahead and just use this import existing content feature right here. And this gives you the option to import your content, and then you pick what type of content you have. Typically what you're using is copying a Canvas course. Now this can also be used if you're trying to import something from an old Blackboard export, or if you have a quiz file from a publisher, this is also how you do that. So I'm going to go ahead and select this copy a Canvas course. Now, when you're in here as an instructor, this will actually give you a drop down that has the list of classes that you are assigned to as an instructor. Now, since I'm an admin, I actually have to type mine in here. And then what you're going to do is select the class from, say, the previous semester that you want to copy. And when you're copying the whole class, you want to go ahead and select this all content. Okay. You can also use these adjust events and due dates. So this, you want your beginning date to be what it was for the semester you're copying from, and then you can change it to the semester that you're coming to, the first date. I actually typically change these just manually on my own instead of using this feature. And that's just because fall to spring doesn't always translate as well as you think because of holidays and such. So I actually don't typically use that one, but sometimes it is helpful. You can also just have it remove dates if you want. So then you come in with a fresh start. I actually like to just leave it like this, because then when I see it, I know which week those due dates went with, and I can adjust them manually how I want to. Then all you have to do is click the import, and Canvas actually does this pretty quick. I know it's been about 3 years since we were in Blackboard, but course copies did not go this quickly in Blackboard. We can actually probably just wait here a second, and it will run and be ready for us. You can actually navigate away from these pages when you do copies. So if you're doing something else, don't feel that you have to stay on this page for it. We'll give it another second there, watching that blue bar go. Sometimes you can click away a little early and go to home. Oh, it's getting there. It's not all the way there. Give it another second. Oh, completed. So then when I come to home, you can see it brings over everything. Now, remember, when you bring a full course copy over, it does bring everything. So it brings your announcements. So you can come in here, and sometimes that's great because you may have announcements that you send for, right before the midterms or something. And what you can do is come in, and instead of deleting these, you can edit it and actually set it to be for a delay posting. And then you could put the date that you would typically send that. So don't feel that you have to go in and delete all these, but do know that they are there and available to your students. Okay.
Hey, Carrie, I have a question on that.
Yep.
Okay, so when you bring in a new course, all the announcements are there, right?
Uh-huh.
Are they visible to the students then?
Yes.
Oh, so we do have to
Yep.
delete them if we don't want to use them, or delete.
Correctly.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So they come over, and again, you can go in and either delete them, and if you don't want any of them in this next step that I'm going to show, you could actually just not bring them in. If you're a really heavy announcement user, maybe you don't want to bring them over. But that kind of brings us to our next feature that there is. So if you want to say you want to copy over your course, but maybe you just want to copy over your home page and your quizzes, and you're not wanting to bring over announcements and assignments and the extra files and stuff for whatever reason. Maybe your publisher changed or something, and you're wanting to just bring over a few pieces of it. So I'm actually gonna real quick, since I'm using the same blank class, I'm going to reset this course so that it's blank, just for the training purposes. But if you're wanting to bring in just something, just a few pieces of it, you can actually use this selected content feature. So we're going back to having that blank class ready for a semester. And from here, you always want to be in the class where you're wanting to bring the content into. So we're going to say import existing content. And again, we're going to select that copy a Canvas class. And again, this would give you a drop down of all of your previous classes. And now, instead of doing this all content, I'm going to do select specific content. Okay. Now, there's no other features here. It's just select specific content. And then you go ahead and click import. It's not until after you click import that you see this button to select which content. Okay. So then if you click the select content, then it opens up this page for you. And this is where you can select what you want to come over. So I'm going to have my course settings. I want my syllabus, my modules. You can do individual assignments if you want. So if you hit these drop downs, you can actually select individual ones or individual groups. If you're wanting those, I'm going to go ahead and leave my assignments off for this one just for a sample. But I am going to bring over my quizzes and my discussions. And I'm not going to bring over my announcements this time. Okay. Now, if you have, notice there's one for files. If your files are linked to the stuff you have in your modules, it will bring those over. So you don't have to individually go through here and select all of that. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and say, select that content. And now it's going to copy just those things over for us. So you can use this if you're starting at a semester, or even if say you've built a module that you really like your introduction module, and it would work for every single one of your classes. You could go grab that from, if you made it for fall 2022, and it's just perfect, and you want it in everything for spring, you could use this process and go get that one module for all of your classes. I'm gonna let that little blue, oh, it's completed. So we're gonna go, I'm gonna click on home. And there everything is that I told it to bring over, okay? All right, so that covers our using the course copies and using just selected content. Let's look here if we were wanting to just copy one item to another class. So now for this example, what I'm thinking is we have our class. I'm gonna actually go back to my one that has my original content in it. So let's say within here, I have this one module. You know, I was saying we could use that selected content to take a module to other classes. There's actually another way to be able to do that as well. So let's say I've built this welcome begin here, and this, I have it set up that this would be perfect for every one of my classes or another class. Maybe I have 2 sections or something. You can actually use these little, I call this the kebab icon, the ... because I never know what else to call it. You say the more option and nobody knows. Some people call it the snowman. I like kebab. This is a kebab and this is a hamburger. Makes it easy. So if you click the kebab, you actually have this option to copy to. And if you click copy to, you can actually, and again, if you were in here as an instructor and not an admin user, I think it would actually give you a drop down. But if you just start typing the title of your class, you can tell it to copy to a class and say copy. And now it's putting it in that class for me. So again, don't think that you need to open these pages up and copy paste into another class. Use these features where you can copy it. You can do this for individual items as well. So let's say I've got, I'll go to my assignments tab. Let's say you have an assignment that you would like to be copied into a different course. You have the same features there. You've got the copy to. So you can do this for modules. You can do it for assignments, discussions. It's just a really easy way to be able to send things. I'm gonna double check. I can't remember if it is possible for announcements. I don't think it is. Let me check here. Oh, I lied. Once you're in the announcement, if you want to copy it to another section or another class, you can do that. Sometimes that's really handy, especially if you have a generic one that you send out right before spring break, you know, reminding your students like, hey, have a great break, but don't forget about school. You can use this and copy it. So again, you're not having to type that same announcement or copy and paste just the text. You can use it to copy too. Okay.
Hey, Carrie.
Yes.
If you copy just an item from within a module to somewhere else, do you get to choose where it goes? Or...
I believe so. Let's check. I think it does. I think when I just did the module one, it didn't. But let's see if we do this. And I said copy to. And let's see if we get. I thought it did. Yep. So when you do just an item, then it'll give you your modules that already exist in that class you're copying it to. And then you can tell it where you want that to go. And you can even say if you want it at the top, before or after. So let's say I want it before, and then it even gives me all the things in that module. So you can really pick where it's going. Let's say copy. It'll go. And those don't take very long. If we were to go into that other class, I just copied those two. They're usually there pretty instantly. I would say it should not take more than a few minutes for it to be there. Any other questions on the copying an item? Good. The next one is one of my favorites. Sometimes you may have, you've built this really great course resources page, and maybe Susan's talking to Lauren and Lauren's like, oh, I would love to have that. You can share it directly to her. So we'll go ahead, and I'm going to use this course resources as an example. And when you click on the kebab, you see where it says send to. So you can send resources to other people at LCSC. So if you hit the send to, it's going to pop up a box, and you do have to type their names. I'm seeing if I can find Marlo. There she is. So and you can send it to multiple people at once. But once you've sent it, so content share successfully. Now I'm going to go back to my Chrome that was misbehaving a little earlier and see if it'll let me in there now, because I had some things that I had shared to my fake user that I wanted just to be able to show you guys from there. So we're just going to try this one more time and see if it'll behave. And it just does not want to today. We'll try it. This can be really useful if you teach one of the classes where, you know, there's a lot of like the English 101s and stuff, and those instructors may need to share resources. And this is a great way to be able to do that. It's just not wanting to connect. Let me see here. Well, we'll just do it from my account. That's okay. What happens when you get shared content? I actually think I can share something to myself. Let me try that real quick. Use that course resources, and I'm going to send it to, and I'm going to try to send it to myself. Let's see. So when you go to your account over here on the left, you'll see that about the 5th one down is your shared content. And if you go to that, oh, there, it just popped in. You will see all the items that have been shared to you. So from here, then, you can import these into whatever class you want. So if Susan had shared this to Lauren, Lauren could now go in her shared content and say import, and she could put it into the class that she wants it to go into. Again, you have to kind of start typing the title of it, but then they pop up here. And say import. I'm importing this into the same class, so it might not. Let's see. Oh, I didn't hit import, I hit close. Try that again. See at the bottom. There we go. So then if you go back to that class, it should be in there. Again, for this example, I'm importing it on top of an import because I'm having weird login issues, but it should be there. Yep, it dropped it in. Since it had a duplicate name for this one, it did give it a 2, but I think you guys see how you can use that share and then be able to import it into a class. I really like that one for being able to share things with colleagues. Angela and I use this in between each other in our office if we've created things. And again, you can share stuff to yourself as well. So which I just demonstrated, but you can then have those resources in your shared content. When they do first come in, I clicked on it too soon. You will have a little red number up here by your account when something first comes in. And then by your shared content, you'll see a little red number with when something's shared to you. And when you come in here, you can have these marked as unread, or it will be marked as unread when it's new to you.
Is there a way to look at those things and review them without dropping them into a class?
This, I don't believe there is. Oh, yep, actually you can. Right here on the kebab, you go ahead and click preview from there. And I think it actually is, it might be a blank module. No, it has stuff in it. And so then you're able to review what's in there.
Okay.
Yep, it's not as obvious though, so remember to click on that kebab to be able to preview it. And then this is also, if you're done with something, go ahead and remove it, right? If you don't need it, go ahead and remove it. Okay. So that's how you can use that direct share. And again, you can do this with modules, you can do it with assignments, everything. You can't do it with an entire course. That's the only downfall of this feature. So I couldn't share my entire class with Marlo, but I could share pieces of it. And that's more of what this is for. It's like if you've created a really great assignment or discussion post or something and you want to share that with a colleague, that's a great tool for that. All right, so the other feature that I want to be able to show you guys is Commons. So Canvas Commons is an open source area where there is content galore for Canvas already built. Commons is over on that left-hand menu over here. You can go ahead and click on that. The first time you click on Commons, if you haven't, it will, I believe it asks you to authorize. You can just go ahead and say, okay, it's not anything out of the ordinary. But then once you're in here, before I jump in and show how to share, I'm just going to kind of demo what's in Commons. Again, it's an open source resource. So if you're looking for, you need a really great quiz or information on American Sign Language for your class, you can search for different items that fall in that category. You can also use the filter feature. So if you're just looking for a quiz, you can narrow it down to just quizzes. If you're wanting to make sure that you're getting college level stuff, because Canvas is used for K-12 as well, you can go ahead and click on the undergraduate. You can also, if you're looking for something just for Lewis Clark State College, you can come in here and select that. I'm going to do the all and just use undergraduate. Just look, I'll use this as an example. And then you can preview these items as well. Sometimes this is great for, we actually did use this for an ASL class at one point, because recreating all those videos of like finger spelling and doing the alphabet and all of that stuff is very time consuming. And if the resources are out there for you, go ahead and use it. Don't reinvent the wheel. You know, if it's out there and available for you, go use it. And again, you can click on these and be able to preview what's in there. So you can see this is a quiz. This is the questions that are asked. You can imagine this is similar for each of the types of things. I'm using specifically quizzes here. So the great thing of this is if you want to share a resource out to Commons, you can. So for example, we share out the student resources module from our office each semester. So I'm actually just going to use that as an example here real quick. Again, this is me having to search for classes just because I am in here as my admin user, but so if you're in a class and you want to be able to share, say, a module out to Commons so that everybody at LCSC campus can use it, you can actually click just right on that kebab again and then say share to Commons. This one's actually going to come up because this is a previously shared resource. It will come up as knowing that. So if you had imported this into your class previously, and I update it, you'll actually get a notification that it's been updated and you can update it within your classes. And then it's pretty self-explanatory going through the steps of adding version notes. If you're, adding it to, you can also share things just to yourself as well. So if you're wanting to share a class out there just for you to be able to keep and use, you can. You can give it version notes. If you see stuff shared from us, typically we'll put version notes in that say spring 2023 or which semester it goes with. And then I do recommend if you're sharing stuff for us, just mark it as undergraduate, just so that it falls into the correct category, and then go ahead and click update or upload, and that will put it in there. So that's showing just a resource. Now, if you were wanting to share an entire class, I'm going to go back to the course. If I go to settings, which is at the bottom left of the course menu, and if you go to, there's a copy to commons, share to commons right there at the very top. If you click on that, that will actually share the entire course out to commons. And again, follow through just the steps on the screen and go ahead and put it up there for you. Again, you can use this to also share just to yourself. So if you're wanting to have a class saved to commons that maybe you bring in every semester, you could go ahead and do that as well. With being able to use course copies, I don't know if that's quite as necessary as you think, but you might find it helpful for how you set up your classes. And I already kind of talked about getting content from Commons, but let's actually look at that just a little further so you can see how it comes into a class. So we have eLearning has actually put up a few different modules that might be helpful for your students. So if you use peer review assignments in your classes, we actually have a module you can put in your class that shows students how to use those, because it's not quite as straightforward as some things in Canvas. So let's say that's something that I want to put in my class. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the item. And then I'm going to say import download over here on the right. And again, you can preview it all right here as well. But I'm going to go ahead and say import and download, and then it'll give you a list of all your classes. And we'll use one of my great, use this one of my sample classes, because it'll only give you classes that you're enrolled in as an instructor. So that's in my 2021 fall CK. And you can actually import it into multiple classes at one time if you want to. So if you knew you needed this module in 3 of your classes, you can click them all in there at once. And then you just say import into course. And then there it goes into that class. Now it will, since that's a module, it will automatically put that at the bottom. So I'm going to actually go get into that class. And it should put it, yep, it puts it at the very last, which is Canvas's default. When it doesn't know where to put something, it puts it at the end. And then you can, of course, drag and drop whatever you bring in to where you would like it to be. There's some really great stuff out there in Commons. I've worked with instructors to get content for the electrical classes, for sign language. It's a really great tool.
Is it possible, because I created my own template for my classes and put it in Commons, but now I'd like to make some changes to it. Is there I can't seem to edit it on Commons, which makes
You
sense.
cannot edit it on Commons.
Okay.
You would have to edit it within the original class you shared it from. Does that make sense?
Yes. Is there any way to have I just need a storage facility sometimes, like an empty class that I can play around with and store things there?
You can, yeah, there is a way. We can do sandbox classes for instructors upon request. It's not something we always do, just because if we gave 240 faculty, whatever it is, a sandbox. But if it was probably for a template type thing, we could work with Alex and IT and get that in there. If you wanted to shoot me an email about that, Lauren, we could work on it.
Yeah, because sometimes I've made modules for other instructors, so I've had to put them in one of my actual classes, and I forget
And
they're there. and I
before
can't
you can
hold them
share
for
it.
5
Yep.
years. Yeah. So nice
Yep.
to just have an empty space sometimes.
Yep. And a new feature that's in Canvas that actually social work is piloting is we actually made a Commons group for social work. And so the social work instructors will be able to share content just within their group. So if that is something that you have a cohort of coworkers, or, you know, I always think of it for our English 101 classes, just because there's so many of them. If there's something like that, where you want to be able to share content just with that group, reach out to myself or Angela, and we can work on getting cohorts set up in Commons for you as well. The other thing I mentioned before was if you get updates. So again, if we at eLearning update, say the peer reviews for students, and you've put this in a class, you'll actually get a notification here in the updates. Notice mine says 0 right now. And you just come in here and it tells you what version it is and make sure you want to update it in the courses it's in, and you go ahead and click update and it will just magically fix that. So any questions on that, on sharing content, on features that maybe you weren't aware of or want to know how to use more?
I do have one question. It's
Sure.
maybe a little bit simple, but I'm
Okay.
just thinking about courses, and I know you mentioned you can take things from a previous course that you had. At what point do those, or at any point, do those get deleted in Canvas? Are
They won't be deleted. So a course, I'll start from the beginning on that one. So at the end of a semester, courses go into what's called a read-only state. So at that point, you can no longer go into them and edit things within the class, but the material is all still there for you to access. And the reason we do that is when a class is no longer active, that actually acts as our archive here on campus for LCSE. So that's why they go into that read-only state. So if there was ever a grade dispute or a question, we have that as an archive of this is what the class was like during the semester. Now you can still go into those read-only classes and copy material. You can still access them. If you're in this current semester and you want a module from 2020, you can go back and get those. So at no point do you lose those classes. I think we're on a cycle that will start when we've been in Canvas for 7 years. I think we'll start not having them on there. But for now, we've only been in Canvas since summer of 2020. So all classes should be accessible to you. If you don't see your classes on your dashboard, you can just go to your courses area. And from here, you go to all courses. And then they should be down at the bottom under your past enrollments. And these would be older classes. And so you can't see them on your dashboard anymore, but you always have access to them.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, so you can always go get that content and bring it in, and then you can edit it once it comes in. You know, if you brought in an assignment and for whatever reason it had the date of 2021 on it, you can edit it once it's in your class. But you can go into past enrollment classes and share things. So I'll make sure. Yeah. Yep. Same access. Did that answer that question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, you never actually lose access to any of your classes. They just go into a read-only state, so you can no longer go in there and build things and mess around with it, but you do have access to it. You can also use these features. Some of you may have classes in Canvas that aren't for credit class. If you're part of a club or an organization, some of our clubs and orgs use Canvas, and those don't go into a read-only state. They just stay active. And you can use all of these features for those types of classes as well. Do we have any other questions on sharing stuff? Sharing content? Any other Canvas questions that you've got my captive attention?
Carrie, were you going to talk about rubrics at all? Like if you want to change a rubric from one class to another?
We can look at, I hadn't had it on there, but we can definitely look at rubrics. So I don't know that, oh, let me get into a sandbox class instead of my old class.
Carrie,
So
can I ask
Yeah.
you a quick question about
Sure.
modules that I've imported?
Sure.
So I've got a class now, and I think I know what I'm doing wrong.
Okay.
I have like the modules locked until a certain date,
Okay.
and I thought I had them set to open, and they're not opening.
Okay.
So do they have to be public? Like they have to be fully
You have to have
published?
them published. Mhm.
Okay.
So
So
the
what I've done is I've unpublished them so I could edit and tweak things,
Yep.
and that's preventing them from opening when they're
Yep.
supposed to open.
So when you've
Okay.
put in those dates, let me real quick drop the rubrics tab in here, and then I'll go show that real fast. So when you're on modules and you have it set to lock until, so if you're in the edit area and you say lock until a certain date,
Mhm.
you want to have that published, because basically Canvas just sees that as it's locked until that date, but if they unlock it and it's not published, it's still not going to publish it. if
Okay,
that makes sense.
okay, that's what I'm
Yep.
doing wrong.
Yeah, I know, it's like a two-step thing, and it feels so weird to have it published when you don't want them to see it or be able to access it yet, but Canvas sees that as a kind of a double check there. All right, so we're gonna
I
real
get-
quick, go ahead.
Can I add a second question? When I do go ahead and publish it,
Uh-huh.
I get like this weird message that says you are taking this out of, like, this is an order out of sequence or something like
You're gonna-
that.
Well,
Is that,
yeah,
is that just a cautionary thing? Like, I just
Yes.
override it anyway?
yep, you can. There's a couple messages that can pop up when you do that. One is it'll ask you if it wants to relock the modules. I
That's
always
not the
recommend say yes to relock if it ever asks you that, because what it's saying is if a student had already progressed that far and then you wanted that to, you didn't mean for that to be open, you would want it to relock.
Uh-huh,
And then the other one is if it's out of order. So you might have a module before it that doesn't, and the module you're doing opens before the module above it, is probably what it's telling you.
okay,
So, because Canvas wants the modules to go in order down the screen. So they want,
Okay.
yeah, Canvas sees it as they should do this module, then this one should open, then this one should open. So if you have a date set for whatever reason on this one,
well,
that
I think
keeps it
I think the way I've got the locks is like, I've got them set to lock until like so if Monday is the 17th,
mhm,
or I might have them set to unlock on the 15th, so they
Yep.
have the weekend to start it.
yeah,
So that's
It's-
probably what's throwing
it's
the message.
probably what's seeing it. And it's like I said, it's just a precaution. It's saying, hey, check your dates. But it's okay to proceed with that.
Yeah.
Just use it as a precaution to make sure you have your dates right, that you want them.
Yeah, no, that's what I've done is I've got it.
Yeah.
I've got it set to unlock, like,
Mhm.
yeah, the week starts on Monday, but I've got it set to unlock on Friday.
And
So
what
that if
that'll
anybody
look
tries to
like-
get ahead.
Yeah, and what that'll look like for students, let me see. Yeah, I have this one locked. So students will still see what's in that module grayed out like this,
Uh-huh,
but they won't be able to access it until, if it's a locked until date, that date will be right here. In this case, it's locked until they complete the assignments in the module above it. But they still do see all the things listed in that module. They just don't have access to it.
right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, thank you.
No problem. All right, so looking at rubrics. So if you have a rubric that you've built within one class and you want, so I've made a drawing assignment rubric in this class, and I wanted to copy that rubric into another class because it's just the most perfect rubric ever, and I want it in all of my classes. You actually have to use the import content feature to copy rubrics. So this is in my 2021 fall CK 101. I'm just going to copy that name so that I don't forget it. And let's say I wanted that drawing assignment rubric in another class. So I'm going to go into the class that I want to copy it into. I will use this one. And this is where you have to use that import existing content feature. And you'll do your copy a Canvas course. You'll copy from that class and make sure that you do the select specific content. I don't know how many times I've had faculty call me panicked because they went to go do this and they were just trying to copy one thing and they happened to select all content and they just copied a whole class on top of another class. So that is fixable if it happens. Give me a call, but also just make sure that if you're doing selected content, you just click on the specific content. Again, when you click that import, it'll come here with select content. And then from here, you can select rubrics. So if I just want that drawing assignment rubric, I just select that one thing and bring it in. Rubrics don't have the feature to do the direct share or the share. I don't believe you can share a rubric to Commons either. So if you're wanting to import a rubric from one class to another, you would need to use this tool.
So if I import it to another class and then I want to change it
Yep.
in that class, is the one I imported it from going to stay the same?
Yes. So once it's in this class, so I've brought it in, now it is tied to this class only, and I can come in
Okay.
here and edit the rubric how I want for this specific class.
Okay. I think that's the way I need to do things, because I was going into assignments and then add rubric and bringing in an old rubric, but then I want to change the points and it doesn't actually like that.
Yeah, and then you can assign one rubric to multiple assignments within a class as well.
Okay.
So if I go to, if you notice, I'm on an assignment that's already built, and it has this, before you even go into edit, it's got this thing here to use a rubric, right? So if I click on that, it's going to, first off, give me the tools to build a new rubric here. But if I'm wanting to use one I already have, I can click this find a rubric. And then from here, and you do have access to your rubrics from other classes, but I think when you do it this way, it does keep it tied to that other class.
Yeah,
I've always done it on the import way. Yeah.
I think
So then I'm in the class I want to use my drawing assignment rubric. I'm going to say use this rubric. And then it's tied to here. So I can use that same rubric for different assignments. If I want to edit it, I can click on the little pencil there and go ahead and edit things from here too. Oops. So that kind of gives some basics of the rubrics and using them. You also have features here where you can add freeform comments instead of using the set points. You can also remove points from it where you're just giving them the feedback part instead of points with the feedback. We could have a whole thing on just rubrics. There's so much in there with it. Again, this is obviously it's a very fake rubric that I must have made at some point because it's not quite filled in correctly, but I think you guys get the process for the copying and such. But yes, I use that feature of importing it from another class if it's one I want to use, just so that it's then tied to that class and specifically with it. All right. Any other questions on copies or anything with Canvas? Really, we've got just a little bit of time here.
Yes, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself.
It's all right.
With the rubrics,
Yep.
Is there a way to get it from least points to greatest points, or does Canvas just always do the greatest to least? Because every time I've tried to manually do it, it seems to switch back.
Yeah, actually, I am not sure on that. Let's go in and look. Yeah, so you're saying like within here, it always gives the 5 points, it always gives the 3 points.
Yeah, whenever I set up even point ranges, it always goes from greatest to least. And if Dr. Carmack were here, she would say best practice, especially for students with
She
special
would.
needs, is to go least to greatest.
Yep. And I don't know if it has that granularity. I don't know. That's one thing of the Canvas rubrics. It always seems like I want it to be able to go more. You can select it where you give it a range. And that is where you're saying that it goes. Let's see.
Yeah, I think in my experience, the range has always still gone.
Yep, it goes.
Greatest to.
Yep, it does. It doesn't appear that you have a way to reset that. The only thing I could say is make your rubric very, if it's 10 points across here, give a slot to each point system, even if 5, 4, and 3 are the same, full marks area, just so that you have the ability to give it the right amount of points within there. Kind of means more building out and a larger rubric, but if you're wanting Canvas to see the right amount of points, I think that's what you'd have to do. And you can manually type in points too when you're giving grade, when you're grading with a rubric, I believe. And so you would just have to manually do that then. Yeah, I don't think it has that much flexibility in it, unfortunately. Are there any other questions about rubrics? We can try to answer them. It's a pretty valuable tool. It definitely, if you're grading for if you're just doing a lot of grading, they do help. At least give you a base and start, and give students a good measurement for their success or not success within an assignment.
And then before we go, if it's not too much trouble, Carrie, could you please show again when I want to share content with someone, how I access that again in Canvas?
Yes, let's do that real fast.
Thank you.
No problem. So if you're in a course and I want to share, I'm going to share my introduction with Marlo because she needs my introduction. So if you're, find the item and then click on the kebab, and then if you say send to, then you can send it to, and just start typing their name. And you can send it to multiple people. Let's see if it'll put you up there. And then you just hit send. Once it gets there on the account icon over here, and you might have to refresh before it'll show, you'll get a little number 1 over here, a little red circle above your head that will tell you it's there. And then all you have to do is go to account and go shared content. And then there it is. And you can share stuff to yourself too. So if you're wanting, if you use the same about your instructor for every class, which I think most of us do, you could share that to yourself so that it's just always there if you need to put it in a class.
Okay, and then I'd have to click on it and put it where I want in my course.
Yep. So then you say import, and when you do the import, it will ask you where you want it to go. So if I'm importing it into my class, then it will ask me what module I want to put it into. And then it asks me where. I can say before and what item in there. And then tell it to import. And it will put it in where I asked it to.
Great, thank you.
Yep, no problem. I really like that share feature. It's probably the one, and I don't know that, I mean, we all kind of know how to do a course copy, and most people are kind of familiar with Commons, but I think we forget that we can use the share content. And again, share stuff to yourself, then you have it as you need it. All right, any other questions on don't reinvent the wheel? If you've made one thing once, don't make it 30 times. Use these features so that you have the tool that helps you and works with you. That's the great thing of technology. Sometimes it's hard to build it that first time, but then the next time you need it, it's right there for you. So, all right. Do we have any other questions or anything before we wrap up here for today? I'm happy to answer anything. No?
Well, just thank you for always being there for us.
Oh, no problem. That's my job.
Thank you, Carrie.
Yeah. And thanks for being paid. I'm at home today because I tested positive for COVID last week. And so I haven't been really sick. But I am trying to stay away from human contact for at least one more day. So I got to do this one from the home office. So, and my dog didn't bark the whole time. So I'm real proud of him. All right. If there's no other questions, I think we'll go ahead and sign off here. And if anything comes up or you have questions about what we talked about today, feel free to reach out to me. And this recording will go up, and I will also share that Sheets page with Marlo so she can share that out with the video. It does have how-tos on using all of those features that I talked about today. So those are really great resources from the Canvas community.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your afternoon.